0800 470 1890.
To combat loneliness in the over 65s by providing friendship, information and advice through calls to trained volunteers. Ben Bland has been to see how it can make a difference.
It's 2.5 years since Joseph Day lost his wife. At times, he says the loneliness is unbearable.
After being married for 52 years to my wife, who I say, wasn't only my wife, she was my life, I found it very hard. I don't miss her. After I finish my little jobs on the morning, doing a bit of dinner, then it really comes home and you sat there. I don't know, it just gets you there. I'm not ashamed to say that I break down and cry like.
So could this be the answer?
Hello?
Hi Joseph, it's Natasha from the Silver Line.
A charity simply offering a friendly phone call each week.
Oh, that sounds great.
Natasha is part of a team of volunteers, and older people who are feeling lonely can call them for information, advice, or simply someone to talk to. When someone calls the Silver Line for the first time, they get through to one of the staff based here near Blackpool. They can then be paired up with a volunteer, a Silver Line friend, who'll call them each week. They've been trialling it here just in the north of England, and in the first year, they've already made and received 8,000 calls.
How are you today?
The volunteers say it's already making a real difference.
One lady in particular, she said she didn't have many friends, but now I was classed as one of her best friends, which really, it did touch me. I'd only been speaking to her for 3 weeks.
And now it's being extended to cover the whole of the UK.
The Silver Line helpline is going to be there.
Its founder, ESTHER RANTZEN, hopes it will help older people in the way that Childline has helped many children.
We've discovered that older people are very reluctant to admit they're lonely and ask for help. They don't want to be a burden. They don't want even to tell their families, will ring us. And for old people, we are the only free national helpline that is open 24 hours a day.
Hi Dad.
For Joseph, that one phone call a week helps to fill the gap between visits from his family. This new helpline says it's not competing with charities like the Samaritans. It believes there's a real need, and it's expecting 1 million calls in the first year of going national.
Have a lovely day.
Right, bye-bye.
Ben Bland, BBC News.
Well, ESTHER RANTZEN is with us here in the studio now. Welcome, thanks very much for coming in. What prompted you to launch this particular line?
Well, it came out of my personal experience when I downsized from the family house I was beginning to rattle around in into a little flat, which was very much cosier and more appropriate. But for the first time, I was living by myself at the age of 71, coming home to a dark flat, empty flat, no one to say how was my day, no one to make a cup of tea for, no one to sit on the sofa and watch television with, and I didn't enjoy it. So I wrote a piece about it, and I was really interested by the response I got. One very close friend said, "How could you write like that, Esther? Haven't you got too much pride?" And I got letters from people who said, "How brave of you to be so honest. It's very difficult to admit loneliness." Joseph, that lovely gentleman that you just showed, he's got a family. He doesn't want to burden them. So he's very reluctant to ring them up.
You talk about pride, and there is a stigma attached, isn't there? And I just wonder, you know, if you think about that and the reasons why older people don't perhaps invite people around anymore, all to do with it, you know, not being able to provide in the way that they perhaps once could. Is it different when it comes to making a telephone call? Because I noticed in that report that actually the first call does have to come from that person. I mean, are we targeting the right people? Because if you're very lonely, are you going to be the kind of person who's actually going to have that proactive approach?
No. Loneliness erodes self-confidence. That's one of the subtle ways. It's bad for our health. So, you know, we don't eat properly, we don't take exercise. It doesn't become worthwhile just to do it for yourself. However, what we've done with the Silver Line is we've kept the agenda as wide as we can. We say we're offering information, friendship, advice. So it's not just a question of ringing and saying, "I feel lonely." You can ring for any reason. You want a dance class, you want to know about your benefits, anything. We will link you through to specialist help. We will link you through to wonderful charities in the community like Age UK and Independent Age, Contact the Elderly, who are doing wonderful things but very often can't actually reach the people who need them most. And then we will also ask the question, would you like a regular phone call from one of our Silverline friends? And we're hoping to get even more volunteers than we've got at the moment so that we can train them to make those regular phone calls.
Well, on that point, how many volunteers have you got? How many people have you got at the end of the phone? Because it's only launched today, of course. It's in its infancy. We've got a couple of texts saying that people are having a bit of difficulty getting through.
I'm not surprised. I'm afraid when we launched Childline 27 years ago, we had 50,000 attempted calls that first day. So what we're saying to people is be patient with us. We've got 100 members of staff, but we don't know quite what the demand is going to be. So if you ring 0800 4 70 18 90, 0800 4 70 18 90, I'm doing that just so it sticks in people's minds, so that if they suddenly think at 3 in the morning or they think in a week's time, I'd like to try it, they ring 0800 4 70 18 90, free, confidential, open 24 hours, every day of the week, including Christmas Day.
Well, the jingles work. I can still remember the Childline one.
I'm not going to get that out of my head now.
Well, sing it to each other in quiet moments.
We ought to learn that one instead of the Childline. You know, we've got to say goodbye to Childline.
0800 4 70 18 90. 0800 4 70 18 90.
Yeah, it's
I'll keep it up. I'll keep it up.
Thank you.
Esther, nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
You're watching BBC News. In a moment, a summary of the business news this hour, but first.